Welcome to the How You Breathe is How You Live podcast, dedicated to the radical idea that your life doesn't change until you live the truth. They say the truth will set you free, but they usually forget to mention it'll probably hurt your feelings and piss you off first. I'm Jake Parent, the founder of Breath.Energy, the world's first dedicated breathwork studio, and here we explore the deep architecture of the human experience. We aren't just here to talk about your struggles, because there is no struggle, and the struggle is real. We're here to update the internal software that's been running the show since you were 5 years old. Whether we're diving into archetypes, self-awareness, anatomy, or transcendence, our goal is the same: to move you from survive to thrive. Because at the end of the day, how you breathe really is how you live. And in today's episode, we've all been through things that weren't our fault. But at some point, the strategy we used to survive our past became the very thing that keeps us stagnant in our present. Today, we're diving into the victim shadow. We aren't talking about what happened to you. We're talking about the inner structure that makes sense of the pain by surrendering your power. Join us as we explore how to move from being injured by life to becoming a compassionate realist. Someone who can develop the capacity to be the captain of your own soul. Snap your fingers in front of that mic. Beautiful. Good. We're live on the air. Colin.
First time caller, long time listener. Trying to figure out how to get this Matchbox car out of my rectum. Do you have any tips?
We don't deal with the root chakra here. Definitely sounds like you're going to need a root chakra specialist, which leads us into: how many of the problems in your life are someone else's fault? Not only are they someone else's fault, there's nothing that you can do about it. No matter what I try, I keep hitting the same wall. Other people or circumstances keep getting in the way. And I'm tired of working so hard just to tread water. You don't feel helpless, just tired. You're not lazy, but you feel like your effort isn't going to change anything. Maybe you feel like life keeps happening to you. You're quietly resentful about your life circumstances, or the man, or maybe a life partner or a boss. You feel unseen, unsupported, and unfairly overloaded. You do the right thing and you don't get a prize in your Cracker Jack box. I've been through a lot. People don't realize how hard this has been. I don't have the same advantages that others do. Those aren't excuses, they're just facts about your identity. You learned early, working harder isn't going to change anything. It's like a fly banging its head against a window, trying to escape because it can see the big wide world out there, but no matter how hard it tries, nothing changes. Speaking up won't change anything, and you learned early and often in life that responsibility was a burden with no reward. So you learned to expect disappointment, always ready for things to go wrong, staying alert to injustice or unfairness in life because you were just tired of being let down. You felt unsafe, and that if I try again and fail, it'll crush me. You feel invalidated because don't tell me that I chose this life. And also overwhelmed because you don't even know where to start. People who have this mentality tend to oscillate between hoping someone or something will rescue them and quietly believing that no one ever will. All of us have taken damage in life. No one escapes life unscathed, but we do get to choose how we carry the pain and what may be possible if the story changed. The shadow that we're talking about this week is the victim. And many times when I bring up the victim shadow and my personal difficulties in dealing with people who have a dominant victim shadow, I often see a moment of concern in their eyes. And it leads back to that we've all suffered damage, and having the victim as a shadow is far different from something bad has happened to you in life. Those are two very different things. But before we go any further, let's do a quick recap on what the shadow is, because that is the idea behind this entire series. Your personality was built from protection, not truth. And at some point early in your life, your psyche asked a single unconscious question: what do I need to be to stay connected? And anything that threatened that belonging, your angers, your needs, being sensitive, desires, grief, even your confidence got pushed underground in order to protect that connection. That's the shadow. It's not a bad part of you, it's an unlived part. So your ego is who you learn to be to stay connected. And your shadow is who you learned not to be so that you could stay connected. It's just unfinished belonging. And one of the difficulties with the shadow is that you don't experience it directly. You experience it through triggers, projections, repeating conflicts, and moments that feel strangely out of character. Using air quotes there again for the Riz and the listening audience at home. And having an insight or an aha moment doesn't help you integrate your shadow, because the shadow was created before you had language. It lives in your body, it lives in your nervous system, and in a pre-verbal emotional memory. So this series isn't here to explain the shadow away. It's here to meet you where it lives and give it a new experience of safety. So the victim isn't a personality type, it's a portal. It's what happens when life introduces you to a truth you didn't ask for. You'll face circumstances in life that no matter how much effort you exert or how excellent you are or how well you are at being good, it's not going to make a difference. And if that happens early and often enough in your life, your psyche helps you out by it creates this inner structure for you that if I can't control what happened, at least I can control what it means. And if I can't prevent pain, at least I can have it make sense. And that's the beginning of the victim archetype. Meaning making under pressure. And across cultures, the victim shows up as the person who's wounded, the person who's injured by life. They've been abandoned by the people who are supposed to protect them. They feel betrayed by fate or crushed by forces that are bigger than them. There's nothing wrong with you. You've simply encountered reality. And that encounter has left you feeling helpless, betrayed, abandoned, powerless, that you're experiencing chronic unfairness, that other people get away with things that you're not allowed to get away with, or pain that has nowhere to go. And when pain has nowhere to go, it doesn't disappear, it just becomes your identity. So pain becomes more than an experience. It becomes proof that you're special in a tragic way, that you get your status by becoming the victim, proof that you're uniquely disadvantaged, that you deserve to be rescued, that you're not safe to feel hope. Most of the time, this doesn't happen consciously. It's just a nervous system strategy because pain is familiar and predictable. You learn to keep your expectations low so that you're not devastated again. And a guaranteed pain is better than an uncertain reward. I don't know what it is about us as people that uncertainty is one of the greatest fears that we have, that we would rather have a certain discomfort and pain than have an uncertain positive outcome. It's weird. Clearly nobody asked me when we were coming up with the wiring diagram for that one. Now, no story can have a victim if it doesn't have a villain or a perpetrator or a culprit, malefactor, miscreant, a reprobate, somebody who's going to be the bad guy. And sometimes the villain is a person, or it could be an illness, it could be your past, your body, money, time, your parents, your partner in life, your own mind, or even the system. The system's usually the one that I rail against all the time, the culture, society, government, that they're the big victim, the big villain in my life. But the function is the same. The psyche is externalizing power so that the inner world can stay innocent and intact. Because if the villain is out there, air quotes again, then the deepest fear stays buried. But what if it wasn't just unfair? What if you made poor choices? Or even worse, what if I have choices that I'm afraid to make? Not, are you a victim, but are you willing to leave the story that once kept you safe? Because the victim shadow is here to initiate you. Because only a person who's been wounded by life can truly have compassion. That is, as we inhale pain, that we exhale compassion. That you can become an empath, truth teller, an emotional leader, one who can sit with grief without turning away and become a caregiver for those around you. The victim energy, your shadow is always your gift is always your shadow. And the gift of that and the shadow of it is emotional sensitivity. And the capacity that once made you hurt more deeply becomes the capacity that makes you see more deeply into others. Again, people come to do shadow work. Their first impulse is always, how do I get rid of this shadow? But we're not trying to remove the shadow from our lives or exile it. We're trying to integrate it. So we're not asking the question, how can I stop being a victim? It's how can I honor what happened without building my identity out of it? And on the other side of that isn't becoming harder in life or becoming less feeling or even getting over it. It's becoming powerful that still has empathy and compassion. That you're not going to be someone who denies your suffering, but someone who transforms that energy and becomes capable of love, leadership, and truth because of what you've experienced, not in spite of it. Now, the childhood origins of the victim are identifying as a victim starts early from powerlessness without protection. And it's often before you have language, before a kid has the capacity to think this is wrong or this isn't my fault. All they know is something hurts and I can't make it stop. And it's generally not a one-time incident, but it's chronic, it's long-term, it's repeated. And it's a repeated emotional condition, such as maybe somebody takes care of you inconsistently and unpredictably. Sometimes they dote over you and sometimes they abandon you. That your emotional needs were minimized, ignored, or subtly treated as a burden by other people. Or maybe your parents themselves were dealing with being overwhelmed, depressed, anxious, ill, unavailable. And if you only receive love after suffering, not before, that's a conditioned response, that once you're in enough pain, somebody will love you. And being taken care of relied on you being quiet, small, sick, sad, or compliant. If this is how you grew up, you didn't come to the conclusion, I think my parents need to get their crap together, or more charitably, maybe my parents are limited. You usually think something is wrong with me. So the core lesson that your nervous system took away from that was three things. One, my choices don't matter. Crying, reaching, protesting, or trying doesn't reliably bring relief or change your circumstances. Two, power is dangerous and or disappointing. Wanting too much leads to overwhelm, rejection, or withdrawal, and if you don't try for things, then you can't be disappointed. Three, pain gets attention. Sadness, illness, collapse, or being helpless brings proximity, softness, or care, even if only brief. And that's the crucial survival logic of that. That if I'm strong, nothing changes. If I'm capable, I'm left to myself. But when I'm hurt, someone finally sees me and takes care of me. And it's not manipulation, because manipulation implies skill. And skill requires it to be conscious. That it's not a manipulation, it's an adaptation. I can already tell Riley wants me to say that. It's not manipulation because manipulation implies skill. And skill requires it to be conscious. It's an adaptation.
Question. Oh man, my brain is going in so many different directions. Can you say that one more time for me?
Sure. It's not manipulation because manipulation implies skill.
Does manipulation also require
Predetermination of the outcome, of what you want the outcome to be?
Yes, that would be it.
I don't know that it requires that. I don't know that many people who are doing this, they know they're in pain and they'd like to be out of pain. And I think that is the predetermination or the forethought that they think you're having is, I need to be relieved of this pain.
That kind of goes back to the no one's going to come and save you.
Correct. No one's going to come and save you unless I act really sad or poor and pitiful, and then maybe somebody will come save me. That was the reinforcement you got in life is, if I'm strong, I'm on my own.
Were you asking, did you mean premeditation?
Yeah.
What did I say?
Predetermination?
I did mean premeditation.
Yeah, like manipulation has you plotted this undertone.
Yeah, are there Machiavellian victims out there who are scheming to do that? Yes.
I can name a few public figures that fit the bill.
Yes, but I've also seen people perform what others would consider high-level manipulation that I don't know that the person who was doing it was consciously aware of what they were doing. Like when you look at it in reverse, you can say, aha, you were clearly manipulating the circumstances, but I don't think the person who was actually doing it consciously knew what they were doing at the time, that they're running a script.
So lack of premeditation. It's just how they act.
Yes.
Thank you for that correction.
I think a lot of these things are just conditioning.
Absolutely.
Oh, yeah.
Like stimulus response.
I did this, I get that.
And especially the younger you are, there's not a lot of prefrontal cortex intervening in the stimulus response adaptation process.
And that's one of those things, I did touch on it very briefly, but that a lot of times the shadow feels like an out of character experience because whenever it gets triggered, you're like, what was that? Where'd that come from? Why?
So much.
Who did that? Step forward. Show yourself.
Make yourself known.
Make yourself
Real
known.
Slim Shady, please stand up.
Yeah, and there is that out of character element because it is something that we're trying to repress, that when it comes out, no, I don't think it was premeditated or predetermined, that many times the person doing it is as surprised as anybody else.
Been there. Would you trip and fall into that 12-pack? I believe I did.
I believe I did.
See, I was just going about my business, doing my job.
And then these 12 cans attacked me,
12
held me
Miller
down,
Lights.
poured themselves in. Because this pattern forms before language, pain doesn't feel like an experience. It feels like a me. This pain is me. It's not something that I am experiencing. It's not that I feel sad, but I am sad. I am broken. I am the one that things are happening to. This is how pain becomes fused with identity, not as a choice, but as a developmental outcome. And later in life, when complications arise, the body recognizes something familiar. Aha, this is known. This is survivable. This is me. This is my jam. I know how to suffer and look pitiful. Poor me. It's a recognizable scenario. So the victim was protecting the heart. By lowering expectations, it reduced devastation. By surrendering choice, it reduced shame. By internalizing blame, it preserved attachment. For a child with no resources and who's dependent on others for survival, that trade-off made sense. The problem isn't the strategy. The problem is that it never got updated. As an adult, that same nervous system logic is quietly running in the background somewhere. That you have difficulty accessing motivation without pressure or crisis. I only perform under last-minute panic. Chronic fatigue, heaviness, or emotional gravity. Resentment towards people who seem to have a more supported or carefree life. Must be nice going through life without any problems. Or a sense of being behind, unlucky, or fundamentally disadvantaged. That longing for rescue paired with distrust of help. Save me. No, not you. Just because you, and also just real quick, just because you have one of these symptoms doesn't mean you're a victim. It's more, do you, as a totality of these, like just hearing, oh, the procrastination thing, I'm a victim. It's no, put all of them together and that starts to form a picture.
I feel attacked and seen.
There's a couple of these when I wrote it. I was like,
Ow! Who wrote that?
Who's doing this to me?
put that Lego on my shoe. So the greatest cost of the victim isn't suffering, it's stagnation. That you can't make progress in life as a victim. If nothing you do matters, you won't do much. And as you do less, your life shrinks. When you're a victim, you're not responsible for anything in your life. And if you're not responsible for it, then nothing you do is going to matter for changing it. So you're not going to change it. You have to have that internal locus of control that my life matters to me and I'm responsible for it before the life can start to expand. So when the victim stays in charge, the ability to choose remains locked in the past. The nervous system is still organizing life around the old conclusion that trying doesn't help. It shows up internally as chronic emotional heaviness or fatigue, low levels of depression and apathy, difficulty initiating change without crisis. Again, adults only learn through massive trauma. Oscillating or going back and forth between longing and resignation or desire and giving up. A sense of always feeling behind or off schedule in life. It's not that you don't want more. It's not that even wanting more feels dangerous. It's that hope activates grief within you, and that choice creates fear within you. So the system defaults to endurance. And over time, this drains you of vitality or zip for life, not dramatically, but steadily. And in relationships, victims enter into a relational transactional economy built on pain. That again, it's not manipulation in a constant sense most of the time, but their relationships are transactional in a terrible exchange system. If I suffer, I'm allowed to have needs. If I hurt, I deserve to be cared for. If I stay small, I won't be abandoned. This creates patterns where it makes it difficult to receive support unless things are really bad. that you can't ask for help unless it's an absolute 911 emergency, that guilt or discomfort when things are going well, subtle resentment towards others' ease or success, unconsciously amplifying distress to feel seen. That last one is quite annoying for me, for people in my life, that they make their problem bigger than they should be so that they can bring them to the table. Again, it's not a moral failure. It's a developmental residue.
I am also familiar and irritated by the everything is a 9 out of 10, but nothing's a 9 out of 10.
Yeah, but we tone that down. So ironically, same strategy that the victim was using to create connection in its way ends up pushing people away. That over time, others feel helpless to fix the pain because no matter what they do for you, you're still in pain. That no matter how much they do for you, it's not enough. So they end up feeling guilty, that they feel emotionally drained and subtly blamed even when they care. This can lead to people who enable and reinforce the pattern. People who are trying to rescue you are rescuers. One of the great things about rescuers is they're trying to avoid their own problems, but eventually it leads to burnout from helping people. Or the person becomes more distant, which confirms the victim's belief of, see, I'm in this alone. That the wound self-reinforces. And that anger ends up getting turned inward or sideways. Because the victim has to remain innocent to survive, anger has nowhere to go that's clean. So it becomes depression, chronic fatigue, apathy, self-criticism, quiet bitterness, or moral superiority disguised as resignation. And the body ends up holding rage as weight so that it feels heavy overall. Staying unintegrated doesn't keep you safe. It keeps you unchallenged and therefore unchanged. The victim protected you when you were young, but it remains in charge as an adult, and it slowly steals your vitality or your zip for life, your intimacy, your creativity, the ability to make a choice, and the sense that life is something you participate in, not just watch go by. It's about giving the victim a job it would love. So sensitivity doesn't turn into stagnation, and empathy doesn't come at the cost of your own life. So now we get to talk about what is the integrated gift. Same energy, new job. When the victim shadow integrates, nothing essential is lost, and it just gets promoted to a compassionate realist or to a caretaker role. The sensitivity stays, the emotional depth stays, the awareness of suffering stays. What changes is who's in charge. The energy that once organized life around pain is reassigned to something more powerful, compassion with a choice. The compassionate realist doesn't need to suffer to feel real or to be seen. Pain is recognized in its experience, not as an identity. And this ends up creating a profound shift. Feelings move through you instead of defining you. That grief is allowed without setting up residence within you. That being sad can be honored without collapsing into it and just wallowing around in it. That you don't numb your emotion, you transform it, you allow it, you feel it, and it moves through you. And because you've been to these depths, you don't flinch at complexity. And from this, emotional leadership emerges. That compassionate realist energy becomes emotional leadership. It becomes the ability to sit without discomfort, without rushing to fix it, the ability to say an emotional truth without blaming anyone, that you can tolerate uncertainty without collapse, that you can hold compassion without losing boundaries, and that you can honor the law of request, that people have to you need to ask permission to help, and that you don't have to rush to aid people, that other people feel safe around the compassionate realist, not because they're going to rescue them, but because they don't abandon themselves in the presence of pain, that it's the opposite of martyrdom. And one of the great gifts of the compassionate realist is clean compassion, that they can feel with others without absorbing, without rescuing, or without self-erasing or removing themselves, that they understand suffering intimately, but they no longer need to merge with it, to dramatize around it, to organize relationships around it. They can say, I see you, without saying, I'll disappear for you. It makes them extraordinary listeners, facilitators, healers, and leaders. The compassionate realist doesn't become naive or restless or are relentlessly positive. They are a compassionate realist. They can acknowledge unfairness. They can acknowledge limits and grief and loss without surrendering choice. They don't deny reality, they work with it. This is why the integrated victim becomes someone who others trust in a crisis, that they are calm without being cold, they're honest without being cruel, and they're grounded without rigidity. They're grounded without being stiff. I Porky Pig one line at least. But yep, can't say that one.
Yeah.
They know suffering is real. Having a stammer. They also know it's not the end of the story.
Question: are you familiar with Jung's concept of wounded healer? Yeah, that's what's coming to me right now, is necessity to not identify with your pain, but be very realistic about it.
Yeah, it's when Descartes said, I think, therefore I am. I think he got it a little off in that.
Is it backward?
No, I feel, therefore I am.
I was thinking more, I am, therefore I think, but that's just me, though.
That's what he was trying to figure out, was like, why am I doing this thinking?
Yeah.
Why is this meat suit capable of conscious thought? But I'm going to go back to the victim before we go off on a 40-minute jag on Cartesian.
That sounds like a good plan.
Mind view. So the compassionate realist reclaims power without self-betrayal. They learn that being responsible doesn't mean that you're at fault or to be blamed. That having choice doesn't mean you have to be hard. And that being strong doesn't require a lack of sensitivity, although those two do seem to be on a spectrum between strength and being sensitive. That kind of power is rare. It's the power to choose from presence, not from fear or defiance. It's the power to act without abandoning tenderness. And it's the return of vitality, that as your ability to choose returns, something else does too, energy. That it becomes a quiet aliveness, that your desires are clearer, your boundaries are firmer, that your momentum is steadier and less spiky, and that you have renewed curiosity, that life no longer has to be survived, it can be participated in. And the story shifts from this happened to me to this shaped me, and here's what I'm going to do with it. That wound becomes wisdom, sensitivity becomes skill, depth becomes leadership. This is why when the victim becomes the compassionate realist, it produces some of the most grounded, compassionate, and effective humans on earth. Not despite their pain, but because they learned how to carry it without letting it carry them. So as we've discussed in all the other episodes, the shadow doesn't integrate through insight or aha moments or mere awareness. It integrates when the body learns a higher truth. I can feel without collapse. I can stay present without freezing. I can choose without betraying myself. This is why we use conscious connected breath work. It's not to heal the victim, but to complete the process that it began. At its core, the unintegrated victim lives in a collapsed state, not fight or flight even, but just total collapse. That it's a low energy survival strategy, and that you can't argue people out of that it needs to be repatterned physically. And breath is the most direct access point to do this. Now, you would think that the intention that you would set for this is empowerment, but it's not. Empowerment, that many times that the ultimate goal, like if you come to breathwork, there are some people who tell you like, man, self-love is where it's at. If you can't think of anything else, just set an intention for self-love. For many people, the concept or thought of self-love is so far removed that it's an impossible intention. And empowerment can actually feel threatening to a collapsed system. So we're not trying to create a state where they feel threatened by their own intention. So the intention is capacity. I am willing to feel what is here without becoming it. I am open to staying present without forcing change. I allow support to arrive. None of these demand action, and they all just create permission. And then if you're dealing with the victim archetype, in the conscious connecting breathing that we do, that we have a smooth inhale and that we're always relaxing on the exhale, that we're trying to have a very relaxed pace, that there aren't going to be any forceful exhales, that we're not going for any dramatic catharsis or emotional releases. We're not trying to create an intense emotional state through our breath work, that we're trying to make everything very smooth, that conscious connected part, that it's just going to flow, and that continuity and the ease with which we can get from one breath to the next breath without trying is really what we're looking for. Because what we're trying to teach the nervous system here is nothing bad happens when sensation continues. I don't have to shut down to survive feelings. And during the practice, you're just gently going to orient yourself towards the center of your rib cage, the upper rib cage, the center of your chest. A lot of times this is where grief, longing, and tenderness often live. The instruction is not to fix what's there, but to just stay with it. If emotions come up, allow them to come up, allow them to move, allow them to soften and to pass. There doesn't have to be a story. That you can have that sensation. Sometimes there'll be a story, sometimes there'll be a memory, many times there won't be. Again, a lot of this happened before the age of 5, and you're not going to have a story that's going to be connected with it. You're just going to have a sensation that comes and goes. And as your breathing continues, it's rewiring the hardware and upgrading your software. That the old story was feeling leads to collapse or blame, and the new experience is feelings lead to being alive. And feelings are the complete difference between what is a good movie and what is a bad movie. That when you go to a bad movie, it doesn't evoke any feelings or emotions in you. And that feeling of aliveness is what's going to lead to an incredible life. And that as you continue to do this, you're going to learn that emotions can move. They don't stay forever. That sensations change over time. That presence can be maintained. And that choice can emerge organically, that you don't have to force it. That you're not using willpower, but you're just allowing whatever available energy there is to empower you. That this is the embodied definition of empowerment, not something you're foisting upon yourself, but just something that you're allowing to settle. For many victims, grief has been frozen in time and just stuck there. And conscious connected breath allows grief to surface in waves, to move through the body, and to soften instead of being overwhelming. And it's not an emotional release for its own sake. It's a completion of an emotional cycle. That grief is finally getting to finish the sentence that it started decades ago, and your system no longer has to carry that weight. If you are dealing with the victim during your breath work as you near the end of the practice, a question that you may bring to mind is, what do I have capacity for now? It's not what should I do, but what feels available. This is how the compassionate realist is born. You don't have to do anything. You're just accepting what is available to you. I'm here. I can feel. I can choose gently. And at the close of breath work, you can give yourself a final anchor. I don't need to suffer to be worthy of care. I don't need to collapse to stay connected. I can bring my sensitivity with me into action, and then just let the breath slow naturally. There's no rush. Integration is not a breakthrough. It's a return of circulation. So after you do a breath work like that, you're going to need to integrate it throughout the week. And the week after doing breath work like that, we recommend doing breath work once a week. It creates the best long-term results. And as you go throughout the week, it's not about fixing the victim again. We're not trying to fix the victim. We're not trying to get it to go away. We're trying to promote it. We're up-leveling it. We're giving it a new job, new skills. So it's about waking that initiation to completion gently. And integration doesn't happen by rejecting the victim. It happens by meeting it without letting it run the whole show. That it can be present without being in charge. So I'm going to give you a framework over the next week. This is not a checklist to perform. It's just a way of relating. You may use some of these, all of these, or none of these. First, recognition. Identifying the shadow in real time. Seeing the victim in real time when it shows up. That it's most clearly going to be seen in reaction, not in reflection. It would be nice if we could have a moment of reflection and deal with it on our own terms, but that's rarely when it happens. That it's going to show up as a moment of reaction somewhere that you're going to project onto somebody. Why do you feel unusually irritated by fill in the blank? Who are you judging in your life as being dramatic, lazy, entitled, or always struggling? Or who do you feel envious of because they've received support, care, or are allowed to slow down? Those reactions are often pointing to disowned needs in our own self. If you're having intense emotional spikes, pay attention to those. If you have a disproportionate sadness about an event, some things require sadness, but is the sadness that you're experiencing proportional to what has happened? Are you experiencing quiet resentment? Do you feel guilt or shame that is heavier than what the situation calls for? Do you have urges to withdraw, collapse, or give up, or run away? Instead of asking, what's wrong with me, ask, what part of me feels powerless right now? And then sit and wait for the answer. Don't demand it. Don't pound the table. Just let it show up whenever it shows up.
Where's the money, Lebowski?
Or you can come to Breathwork and we'll give you the Where's the Money Lebowski experience. Part 2. Part 1 was recognition. Part 2 is acceptance. Welcoming the victim without handling it the wheel. Acceptance does not mean indulging the victim. It means ending the internal war and conflict. When you notice the victim present itself in your life, try this orientation. Practice compassion. Relate to the victim as you would to a younger version of yourself. Not with pity, but with steadiness. You might silently say, I can see why you're here. That made sense then. You don't have to disappear for me to grow. You are there to understand the why. For what cause does this exist? This part formed around a pain or unmet needs, not bad intentions. What was it protecting you from? What did it make possible when you didn't have any resources? This reframes the victim from a liability into a historical intelligence, and that you get to separate existence from action, that you're allowed to acknowledge sadness, helplessness, wishing things were different, grief, without organizing your choices around them. Acceptance means I can feel this without letting it decide my next move. Number 3, integration, giving the energy a new job. Integration is where the victim energy is reassigned or promoted, not suppressed. This week, practice negotiating with the ego. Instead of empowering the victim with logic or motivation, try dialogue. What do you need right now? What feels rushed? What would make this feel safer? That choice goes through collaboration, not domination. Channeling the energy constructively, notice what lives underneath the victim. Sensitivity, emotional depth, moral clarity, noticing the suffering of others. You could ask yourself, where does this sensitivity become discernment? Where could this grief become honesty? Where could this heaviness become truth? Because this is how empathy becomes leadership. You are going to transform, not repress. Your role is to give it a legitimate voice, clear boundaries, and a mature role. Pain is allowed to inform. It's no longer allowed to command. Some practical techniques that you can choose for the week. You don't need to do all of these. Pick what feels accessible, easy, and enjoyable for you. Journaling once this week without editing. When I feel powerless, I usually, and then finish that out. Another prompt would be, what I wish someone would understand about my pain is, write for 15 minutes about what people wish you understood about you. If I didn't have to suffer to be worthy, I might allow myself to. Let those insights emerge. Don't force conclusions. You can do an active imagination meditation where you're doing quiet reflection, that you can imagine the victim as a figure, and you can have a conversation with the victim where you ask, what are you, the victim, afraid would happen if you rested or stopped? What do you think would happen if I took responsibility gently? What do you need from me now? And listen, don't argue. Be aware of your boundaries. Notice where resentment, fatigue, or heaviness appear in your life. These are often signals that a boundary has been crossed or never named. Ask, what is being asked of me that feels like too much? What would a compassionate limit look like here? Boundaries are not rejection. They are self-respect made visible. So as we close, sit with this question, not to answer it, just to sit with it. What do I have power over right now? Not tomorrow, not in theory, right now. The victim doesn't become the compassionate realist or the caretaker when life becomes fair. It integrates when choice returns without self-betrayal. That is the initiation completing itself. And that is enough. Remaining identified as a victim is not being dangerous because pain isn't real. It's dangerous because power becomes outsourced. And when we experience ourselves only as the product of our parents, our past, the system, the state, or as a fate of circumstances, if it's always someone else's fault, there's nothing that we can do about it. We slowly surrender what many traditions have called the divine spark, the irreducible capacity to choose our inner posture, even when the outer world is unchangeable. historically, the victim posture is what has made people manageable by society, that they become resentful, exhausted, morally justified, or internally disempowered. And the dark forces in our society love this because it makes you more controllable. Not weak, just dislocated from your own ability to choose. And this isn't about denying it hurt. It is refusing to let pain become the final author of your life. So to move from the paralysis of victimhood into grounded choice.
Yeah. I didn't get a clear, like, how do you get out of the victim thing?
Mm-hmm.
The first part of this sounds like a real death spiral. Can't get a job because I don't have a gun, and I can't get a gun because I don't have a job.
Right.
Like it's an Alice Cooper song. And I know a few victims that I've tried to, yeah, I mean, what you described is right on the nose of nobody can do anything. And it seems like a real debt spiral of like, you're just buried under interest payments constantly, and be like, just take responsibility isn't real advice.
Yeah, taking responsibility isn't the real advice. That's, what I was touching on when I was going through the conscious connected breath work, is that setting an intention of empowerment is a bridge too far. That we're not trying to create a sense of empowerment or even a sense of choice. That the first step is creating a sense of capacity. Do I have the ability to feel without collapsing? Can I accept, for the span of an hour and a half, can I do breath work and tolerate the emotions that surface during breath work around this experience? Can I stay present without freezing? Can I choose without betraying or abandoning myself? And that's where it begins to heal. That would be the first steps for that many times people who aren't in the victim status, we can see the final step of make a choice, be responsible, take responsibility for yourself. Everything in life happens for a reason. It's usually because you're dumb and make bad choices.
Quote Red Foreman.
Right.
Bad things don't happen to you because you're unlucky. Bad things keep happening to you because you're a dumbass.
And that's a great final step, but that's so far over the horizon for somebody who's in this, they can't get there from there. That like, we just need to get to a place where you can feel your feelings without becoming those feelings. That the first step one is, can we separate the emotional state from your identity, which takes time. Can I allow somebody to help me? That would be a big, can I allow somebody to help me if I am not in a complete and total meltdown crisis?
Yeah, if it's not like accept help or perish.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I keep trying to bring this back to like, what do I do? I could be anybody. I have to pick any persona. And the thing you said about breath work, this may still be difficult for people to get to, but you can bring up those emotions and at some level rationally know that you're safe because you're just laying on a mat in the dark and nothing's coming to get you. That still may be really difficult, but it reminds me of when I was doing Wim Hof with athletes years ago, and they were like, you can always hold your breath longer than you think. And like, you're just laying here still on the ground. If you pass out, like, you won't fall, you won't hit your head. You'll just start breathing again as soon as you pass out because your brainstem knows it needs to breathe again. Like, laying still and holding your breath is very safe, while it might feel very dangerous and you're going to panic as you push the limits of how long you can hold your breath. It's an exercise in, I know I'm safe, but I feel I'm not. And it's like it's not dissimilar with breath work, where you can bring up those emotions and you know you're safe despite, so you can engage with that.
I'm going to walk this back a little bit for you, in that the first time I heard this, I thought it couldn't possibly be true. That like the holding to the breath, that's 3 months away from a person like this. That I had a friend who was a medical doctor that told me putting on the blood pressure cuff for some people is a too high pain tolerance for them. That is too great a discomfort for them to bear, is taking their blood pressure with the cuff on the arm. And I was like, how could you, what are you?
Don't understand.
Yeah. How do you get through life? Like, I don't even notice that as a discomfort. And you are coming from a place where it's like, all right, we need to do this incredibly hard thing. And I'm saying, no, don't do this incredibly hard thing. Do this incredibly easy thing of taking just one little step, of feeling one little small emotional discomfort and not collapsing because of it. That is it. Is that the entire roadmap from beginning to end? No. But that is, first comes emotional healing, then comes self-awareness, then comes all these other things that it may take anywhere from 3 months to 2 years to deal with this effectively. And from a somatic feeling it once a week at a mild level of discomfort that we're not trying to redline them the first day. We're trying to give them just a hummingbird's beak of discomfort that they can experience momentarily and then back away from it and go, ta-da, you lived. Not only did you live, you didn't collapse.
You are increasing capacity.
Correct. That we are, all we're doing is it's the difference between, hey, we're doing aqua aerobics right now. And for some people, aqua aerobics, like shortly after I had my ACL surgery, aqua aerobics was fantastic. But I also had a path from aqua aerobics to, hey, let's do squat cleans. We're not here to do aqua aerobics forever. We're here to do that as a first step to get you on that path. And that path is, can we create some level of capacity that's going to increase that capacity? And as you increase capacity in a domain, you generally want to do it more. I could curl 20 pounds last week. I could curl 25 pounds this week. I want to come next week and see how much more I can lift. But it's not like, hey, what's the final step? It's like, just take the first step. Just do a breath work where you go, I can feel without collapsing. I can feel this moment.
I think that's prescription for what to do is, I think it's abstract for a lot of people, and they're like, I don't get this breathwork thing. It's stupid. It doesn't make sense to me. But it's okay. We're not going to take you to the frozen lake and have you do a cold plunge. Let's just put a finger in a glass of ice water and notice what cold feels like.
Well, there's also the ability to tell somebody what the breathwork experience is like on a podcast is fairly close to zero. Like, you can talk about the experience of breathwork all you want, and it is never going to be the experience of breathwork. I compare it to, like, you can read a book about massage all you want. Your muscles aren't going to relax at the end. You can read a book about how to ride a bike all you want. It is no way creates any capacity to actually ride a bike. And that breathwork is an experiential thing. And that until you actually get on the mat and breathe in a group, in a room, it's entirely different. That I did breath work by myself and nothing happened. It was a nada experience. I've done breath work with facilitators who were not very good, and it was a nada experience. That it is not easy to pull off reliably and consistently, which I've somehow created a program that will do that despite my own best efforts.
Falling with style.
Falling with style.
I think
so try the breath work, set this intention, notice the outcome. And that's as close as I can get is we both go to the same chiropractor, and he works with people on clearing emotional residual issues. And in this field, when you're working with people, when you're increasing people's capacity, it is amazing how, because capacity increases slowly, it's amazing how few clients notice that their capacity has increased. Even when you tell them, hey, you're clearly better now than you were before. And they're like, nope.
What?
Nothing in my life has changed.
Respectfully disagreed.
Yeah, the through line of my life, nothing has greatly altered. You recently had this traffic event in your life. If that had happened 3 months ago, you would have had a complete emotional meltdown, and now you're fine. Oh, well, I guess something in my life has changed. That it's just the practice of doing it, that I can give you intention cues, I can give you integration cues, I can give you the practices that you can do. But in the end, the breathwork experience is, there's no way I can tell you what's going to happen.
The cue, so I don't disagree that you can only describe it so much, but if you describe riding a bike versus free soloing a flat cliff, I'm compelled by the bicycle thing. I'm not at all compelled by the free soloing the mountain thing.
Right.
Yeah, I'm on board with learning how to, go fast and yeah, but the other thing, not so much. And I think with breath work, like people, they're like, is it meditation? Am I relaxing? Is it a nap? Is it a sound bath?
That's the thing. It can be relaxing. It can be deep meditation. You can feel like you've done a complete psychedelic and have entered the mind of God. I can't tell you which one it's going to be. And for me to set the expectation of like, I will tell you that it will be deeply meditative and are relaxing and calming. Anything that happens beyond that, your mileage may vary.
Yeah. And I think the cue of, or rather the open question of, can you feel something and not be completely captured by it, or eventually alter your innate unconscious response to it, that's like a target state that I think is probably attractive to some number of people. Can I elicit this feeling that usually captures me and triggers me and sends me into this victim shadow that you've just described very well? Can I get the same stimulus and elicit a different response? Maybe that's even a little too much for people, but from an aspirational perspective, if you just put that out there, at least for me, I'm like, okay, I can't do that. But if that's what good looks like, and I now have a safe space where I can try things and notice, was I anywhere near that target? And maybe that's already a bridge too far, because what I'm describing is like a sense of choice and autonomy where like I'm very comfortable with, I'm going to try things and I'm going to collect information. And if it doesn't work, I'm going to try again. And it doesn't like attack my identity by nodding in the process. I'm like, oh shit.
I would say that we have our group, the group that comes to Breathwork is about 50-50. About 50% of the people are looking at their life and going, I thought there would be more to life than this, and I want to upgrade my life. And the other 50% of the people who walk through the door are in a devastating, crippling amount of emotional and mental pain. And if you are in a devastating amount of mental and emotional pain, like my knee hurts. All right, let's take a look at it. Don't touch my knee. All right, let's bend it. What part of don't touch my fucking knee did you just not get? If you touch my knee, I'm going to poke you in the eye. So that is the 50% of the people that this is for, because they're dealing with that kind of victim mentality of, hey, I don't have an owie. I've got something that is crippling. It is beyond painful. This isn't, it hurts a little bit when I move my thumb. It's like I'm trying to put a cast around my hand because my thumb hurts so bad.
Yeah, there was, just to get super vulnerable real quick, when I first started this.
Real quick.
Just
going to
real
open
quick.
this up.
Just going to open this wound up real fast. It's fine.
Just whip the kimono off here.
When I started this, my genuine, wholehearted thought was, maybe this will make me not want to kill myself every day. When I first started this, I was seeking anything that could alleviate some of the emotional experience that I was having that I felt completely out of control about. And I'm not talking, as the distinction has been made, I'm not talking about feeling emotions because I didn't know how to do that. I'm talking about identifying as the pain that I have carried around my whole life. And it was just too much. And so when I walked in here, like it took a few months, but it was almost like taking a kettle off the stove. Yeah, I mean, some of the chaos is being relieved, but that water is still real hot, and it's still going to burn you. And I'm coming up on my 3 years here, and, just to talk for a second about recognition, like the things, the safety that I have found in even just allowing emotions without having to categorize or intellectualize, to just feel things and feel the sensations in my body without my nervous system screaming danger. Like that is huge, and it's taken some time, and I think that even that is a couple of steps before you were kind of talking about, Josh, which is like Jake said, like these are single steps, baby steps. That is absolutely part of the roadmap. It's just a little further down, just a bit.
Do you feel the fleetingness of feelings now?
Sometimes.
Like the transience of them where you're like, oh, that's a feeling. It's going to pass.
Often. I've gotten so much better at that, particularly when it is, the feeling comes from just something that is out of my control. As Jake said, sometimes things require sadness. Sometimes they require anger. Often I'm becoming much more aware of how to just stop and allow my body to feel. I'm even starting to shake right now. that's crazy. But yes, with the temporary feeling, like I can allow these sensations through my body and know that I am safe, and it still has not ceased to completely astound me when the emotions just like go away. You just feel them and then they go away. That's crazy. And it took me a long time.
I'll say one of the changes that I've had in my life is that tragedies and misfortunes have become less permanent. That the meme of the kids leaving the lights on overnight and the dad saying, I'm never going to financially recover from this. I felt like a lot of my life was, I'm never going to recover from this.
Yeah.
And then I would. And recently I've had misfortune and setbacks, and my first thought was, I'm never going to recover from this. And then 10 minutes later, I'm like, all right, are you done? You done being overdramatic? I'm like, yeah. All right, let's move along. And it's not years of wallowing around in a tragedy, but 10 minutes of this definitely sucks. All right, move it along.
Even something like just being willing to experience an emotion, not carrying it around for months and months and then going, why am I depressed? Yeah, maybe I do carry that around for a week or two. And then that moment comes where I go, oh, and I sit with it. And so even that in its temporariness, I don't know what that word is, but you know what I'm talking about. Even that is.
I remember some sitcom where one of the characters, it might have been Friends or something, where someone breaks up and they're all sad and depressed. And yeah, I think it's Joey that's like, it's never taken me more than a week to get over a relationship. And someone says, it's never taken you more than a shower to get over a relationship. You're talking about having a feeling for months. And I'm like, I don't think I've had a feeling for more than like an hour.
Yeah.
And it's very
but when
different.
I was dealing with my anger, I would be angry for a decade. It was not like very clear conversation. I'm sure Kim can still tell you about it, that I was raging about somebody one time in a business deal. And she's like, how long are you going to be angry about this? And I was like, at least a decade. And she thought I was bluffing. And then 5 years later, she's like, you're still angry. I'm like, yeah, we
got 5 years left.
Halfway through.
Only halfway through.
This is still fight on site territory. It's like, you're a grown-ass man who owns businesses.
My anger has the half of uranium.
Yes. And I'm still willing to throw down over this. I will stand on principle.
This is many steps again in the future, but I heard someone say once that you need to trust your gut, not because your gut is right, but so that it will become right.
The way that I think of it is your gut gets you into the right ballpark and your mind gets you on the right base. That if your gut is wrong, it doesn't matter what base you're on. You're not in the right ballpark.
Well, and I think like we perceive all these things that are unconscious, and that gut feeling that like I feel it in my body, my gut, wherever, that's the unconscious. Like you're getting all this information that's not rational. It's not thoughtful. And if you don't have the ability to listen to that, or you willfully ignore it, or it turns into something else that triggers you feeling like a victim, you're missing out on so much. And like the catastrophic irony of the victim shadow is there's no agency in it. And so the feelings are not feedback. They're just collapsing reassurances of this thing. And that's why
it's a reinforcement of identity.
Yeah. Like when you were describing it, it really felt like a death spiral.
All the shadows are.
Yeah.
The shadow is an anti-identity.
And there's no anyone stepping in to help you either. It's not like writing somebody a check who's in a debt spiral gets them out of it. It just burns your money in the process.
Yes.
Yeah, that one hit a little.
As a person who wrote my own checks for my own debt spiral, I eventually got over that.
Indeed.
And why do I keep burning through all this money? I should stop that.
Yeah. So, all right, this is my last thing, I promise. I guess coming back to I
We
now
don't
see.
believe you.
Yeah, one more tiny one in my last one. So when you said the self-love intention, I was like, that is the I don't know what to do in the gym, and some guys just bench 225 for reps. That's a good workout. And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
Let me just do that.
Have you ever heard Dave Tate talk about his first day as a personal trainer?
No.
So if people don't know, Dave Tate is a world-famous strongman. Enormously strong, enormously powerful dude. Finally gets a job as a personal trainer. First day on the job, throws a 45 on each side of the bar for a guy to bench, takes it off it, bam, immediately pins the bar to the guy's chest and like picks the bar up and puts it back. So to somebody that strong, the only plates that exist are 45s. There are
How many would you like?
Yeah, there are no smaller plates. So he has to go home and talk to his wife and contemplate, I don't know how to do this. I don't know what to do. And that you have to meet people where they are, not where you'd like to talk about. And that's most of the people who are, I'm using air quotes here again, gurus in the spiritual community. They're talking about what they want to talk about and what interests them, not where the people that they're talking to are sitting at.
When I started doing CrossFit, coming out of weightlifting, coaches would be like, we want to do this at about 70% effort. I'm like, I got 100% and nap time.
Yeah.
Like, I have nothing in between.
I have no pacing.
Yeah. There's no breathing and bracing.
Hence, I ran the 800.
Now the last point I was going to make is the set of what's the tangible next thing. I think you said it many times is like show up, try some breath work, and what you're looking for is to experience something and not feel totally attacked and overwhelmed. Yep. And maybe it is just like feel attacked and overwhelmed and like be okay with that. It's if we compare it to the gym and you're like really overweight and haven't exercised and ever, it's like just show up and in the pool and walk in the pool and then get out and go home and come back and do it again, maybe an extra lap.
Hey, I'm a little sore. Great. You know, the chances that somebody is going to do this, not a message today, they're going to have some there's going to be some residual emotions that carry through the next couple of days. That most of the time when people do breath work, there's an afterglow effect that lasts 3 to 4 days. That you're going to be a state of presence, awareness, you're going to be calm, you're going to be centered, you're going to be grounded. If they're coming at it from this direction, they are not going to experience an afterglow. They're going to experience an after soreness. Like they are going to have difficult emotions that are going to come and go throughout the days in waves that they're going to have to stay present with without collapsing. It's going to be uncomfortable.
Open challenge that I would present to you is like I know many people who have done the transformation of I'm ridiculously out of shape and can't do a burpee to being top 10% of the population fit, which is actually still a pretty low bar. Or like having gone from being kind of a dipshit college student to having a PhD in a highly technical job. Like they've done the transformation either physically or intellectually or both. And when presented with it in this other realm, they're like, nah, bullshit. That's snake oil woo. And I'm like, you know that you as a human are capable of incredible change. What makes this different? And for some of those people, I have no idea how to make the comparison or dangle the carrot or anything.
It is, to make this about you for a minute, you.
Yay. That's all I'm here for.
You enjoy the challenge. And you are talking to people who want the reward. So you have challenge language that is trying to motivate, reward people. There's a remarkable disconnect between those two. Because I've seen you do it where you're like, let's go hard. And they're like, I don't want to go hard.
Like that's what we do. That's the good part.
What is the minimal optimal dose that will give me the desired result? What is the least amount I can work for the most amount of money? Whereas you are like, I just want to create stuff.
Yeah, I just want interesting challenges that are a little bit different.
Correct. Yeah. And even most people, I think I've talked about this before, I'm not sure. High intermediate will make you exceptional in our world. That if you are high intermediate at anything, that as a weightlifter, I'm high intermediate. I am not advanced. I squatted 425, deadlifted 515. That's high intermediate for somebody who weighs over 200 pounds. In the world at large, that is phenomenal. In the world of strongmen, it's high intermediate. You know, if you can bench 225, you're in the top 1/10%. If you make over $300,000 a year, I think it puts you in the top 2%, top 5%. If you can play 3 songs on a piano, you're in the top 1% of music performers. Yeah. The level that it takes to be high level intermediate is not that great. And the same thing is true here. Like, hey, can you emotionally regulate yourself? And are you aware of what's going on around you? And most people can't. So we're just trying to get them from a place. Like, I'm trying to teach people colors and numbers, and you're trying to teach quadratic equations.
I'm now realizing that all of my motivational language is completely wrong because You just said like, can I get you to emotionally regulate? I'm like, challenge accepted.
Right.
That sounds interesting. Let's try that.
Yeah.
And like, I'm almost entirely in it for, I don't know if and it's all, I'm very challenge motivated, but ultimately I'm curiosity motivated. And I like the challenge because that is the path through
But you're
the
not
curiosity.
in pain.
But what?
You're not in pain.
There are
So
things
you're
that are
talking to people-
uncomfortable, but
Right, but those are chosen discomforts. You've chosen to eat the frog first thing in the morning. You're talking to people
that's
who are...
true. Voluntarily getting in the cold plunge is way more tolerable than like falling in a frozen lake.
Correct. And it's...
One feels like growth, one
50
feels like dying.
50% of the people, I still hate it. 50% of the people that walk in, it's like, how can we get you out of pain? And the other 50% of the people, it's like, how can we help you develop growth? This shadow series is about people who are in pain. Like, the thought of, like, how can I create the greatest life possible? Don't give a shit. Like, how can I... You're like, right.
Circle S.
Yes. Is how can I not be in unending pain every time I do something?
So for you, what was the like early feedback?
In
Well,
terms of
Like in the first few months, you were like, this is overwhelming pain. What was the like, ooh, there's a glimmer of less pain?
that's a great question. I guess somewhere along the way, I stopped. This might sound bad. Somewhere along the way, I kind of just realized that I didn't think about killing myself every day. So, as morbid as that might sound, for the thought to be so ever present and such a reflex thought when the most minor emotional, uproar happened, for me to have something happen, have something not go my way, I get my feelings hurt, whatever the case may be, and go, wow, that sucks, and not immediately want to freeze or fight. I don't think it was like the sun just turned on one day. It was so slow and so painstaking, but the realization was for sure just like a one day, like, oh shit, I'm not drowning anymore. So I guess it's working.
So what kept you from quitting?
I think part of it was, second, trying to keep my stuff together here. I think part of it was being in a space for the first time. I felt that I did not have to produce or perform or manufacture. I could just be in pain. I could just be sad. And I was not judged. I was not othered. I was just provided space and guidance and oftentimes comfort. No one can do the push-ups for you, but there's something to be said for having some cheerleaders to go, you can do these push-ups. And not just once, over and over. To have people in your life that see more in you than you see in yourself. I cannot overstate the importance for someone like that. And also real quick, just going back to your point about voluntarily getting into a cold plunge versus, accidentally falling into a frozen lake. I think there's something to be said about the energy that is spent. And I say this with all authenticity, like I'm completely 100% being true. I love so much that you have so much energy to put toward thriving, because there hasn't needed to be so much energy put towards survival. And that's beautiful, right? We all have a limited amount of energy. Like you run out sometimes, like we're human, it just happens. But when you don't have to spend it on surviving, when you don't grow up in that space, maybe you just don't know about it.
Well, I would just like to say that you completely foobarred your victim status by not being envious of someone else who's been cared for and supported.
You
I don't have to check all
kid.
the boxes. Shoot,
Yeah.
I do this my way.
Yeah. That's one of the big hallmarks of the victim status of how dare you have it easier than me.
I've done a lot of work on that. I used to be, I used to struggle with stuff like that. Why you and why not me? And that was a look that was one of the first looks that I wasn't very fond of about myself. And so one of the first things that I wanted to clean up, because I want to enrich the relationships in my life. I want to support my friends. Like I want to see the people I love be happy and do good and do for themselves. And so, I think being envious of that just detracts from that. And that's not a look I like.
With that, I'm going to wrap up this exceptionally long podcast, which I'm going to have to cut an hour from it.
Not sorry.
Maybe I'll put it out as a bonus weekend episode. Hey, listen to all this blathering. Two episodes. So, we'll wrap this up. So, from victimhood to inner sovereignty, this is the poem Invictus by William Ernest Henley. Out of the night that covers me, black as the pit from pole to pole. I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced nor cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and yet the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how strait the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. Henley wrote that poem while he was suffering from life-threatening tuberculosis to the bone. He was facing amputation, chronic pain, and uncertainty. It's not the voice of bypass. It's the voice of fortitude. It's about the persistence of the soul. That the poem is a declaration that suffering does not automatically get to define the self. That pain is acknowledged but not enthroned. This is the essence of the initiation. That refusal to let the wound become the ruler. It's the rejection of blame. That Henley doesn't deny the clutch of circumstance. He simply refuses to hand it authorship over his inner world. The victim dissolves not when the circumstances improve, but when blame loosens its grip. Even in traditions where fate governs the gods themselves, there remains a final domain no empire can conquer. The interior posture or the attitude of the human being, not the control of events, but the command of response. I'm not asking you to pretend that life didn't hurt you, that none of us escapes unscathed or scarred. I'm certainly not asking you to be grateful for what broke you. I'm asking you for something quieter and far more radical. To stop asking, why is life happening to you, and begin to relate what life is asking you from you. Your head may be scarred. Your history may be heavy. But here in this body, in this breath, in this moment, you remain unbound. How you breathe is how you live. Take a triumphant breath.